Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stretton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults, plus the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stretton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manapara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and enjoy a show at the Shedley. Playford's iconic Shedley Theatre is bringing a great selection of local and national performances to Elizabeth.
For more information on their upcoming shows, visit theshedley.com.au or call 8256 0500.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au/fightfoodwaste.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Want to get involved in your community? There are so many benefits in becoming a volunteer at City of Playford, including meeting new people, developing new skills, sharing your talents, improving your employability, as well as enhancing your own mental health and well-being.
If you want to learn more about how to volunteer with us, visit playford.sa.gov.au/volunteers. Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stretton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults, plus the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stratton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manopara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and enjoy a show at the Shedley. Playford's iconic Shedley Theatre is bringing a great selection of local and national performances to Elizabeth.
For more information on their upcoming shows, visit theshedley.com.au or call 8256 0500.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au/fightfoodwaste.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Thank you and welcome to City of Playford Council Assessment Panel meeting tonight being Thursday the 20th of November 2025. We will commence the meeting at 6:01 p.m. I am Matt Deneen, the Assessment Manager for the City of Playford Council Assessment Panel, commencing the meeting in the absence of our presiding member, which we'll get to in a short moment. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that this land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. The City of Playford would also like to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm joined here today with able staff, myself as Assessment Manager, and panel members, both in online and in person. We'll progress first to those apologies, being Mr. Jeff Parsons as presiding member, Councillor Miss Misty Norris, Councillor Tanya Smoljanik and Adam Squires. As a result of the apology of Jeff Parsons, we've had a request for a presiding member. Mr. Aaron Curtis has put his name forward for that acting position. I'd like to first, as a point of note, put that to the vote of the panel. That is carried. With that, I'll revert to Aaron to take on the role of acting presiding member for the meeting going forward.
Okay, good evening all. Thank you, Matt, for the introduction. So as Matt mentioned, my name's Aaron Curtis. I'm one of the panel members, and for this evening I'll be the acting presiding member. And also with us on the panel is Paul Micken and Cherie Gill. Cherie Gill's online. Good evening to you, and also welcome to those in the gallery and also to staff that are assisting us this evening. So we've also already noted the apologies, so thank you for that. We do have a quorum, so I do note that as per our operating procedures, we will then move into the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. So the recommendation is the minutes of the Council Assessment Panel meeting held on the 18th of September 2025 be confirmed as a true and accurate record of proceedings. Do I have a mover in relation to the confirmation of the minutes? Paul Micken, yep. And a seconder? Yep, Sheree Gill, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, that is carried. So we will move through the agenda. So we will move the next item is in relation to item 6.1, which is an application for consideration. And this is an application where we do have representatives that wish to be heard. The application is in the nature of change of land use to a transport distribution facility for the purposes of supporting primary production comprising warehouse, heavy vehicle parking of up to 8 vehicles, car parking, truck maintenance, washdown area, detention basin, fencing and landscaping. And what I may do is, first of all, just refer over to staff to introduce the item, and then I'll explain the next steps in terms of the hearing of the representations. Thank you.
An update on the proposal tonight. One of the nature of the development has been amended due to the removal of the washdown area and the truck maintenance area, and this was due to an update of plans following public consultation and prior to the presentation to this panel. And the reason being, we requested I guess a clean package, considering there'd been quite a large sort of number of sort of changes within the application over this time. So following that, and I think that's been distributed to the panel. So the recommendations remove the corresponding performance outcomes in the recommendation on the final page. I just would also like to advise that we had received only 2 days ago an updated stormwater management report. Staff haven't had the capacity to be able to review this. We didn't have the time to review this at this time. So in terms of any further recommendations for any consents, we will stay with what we're asking for in terms of reserved matters, if that were the outcome. I just want to confirm that the applicant is here with the consultants from URPS, and also both representatives, Don Sawley and Roger Fryer, here as well.
Great, thank you for the introduction. So before we kick off the commencement of the hearing and representation, I'll just briefly outline for those in the gallery, and in particular for the representatives, that the assessment panel is comprised of members that are appointed by council to undertake the function of determining development applications as a relevant authority in their own right under the Planning, Development and Infrastructure Act. And so this is, whilst the decision is made in relation to the application, the independent members essentially are asked, or the council panel is asked to make decision against the provisions of the Planning and Design Code. So a report has been presented before us for consideration, and there is a recommendation in the report, and the agenda has been published, and you may have had opportunity to review that. We do have a copy of your representations that have been presented in relation to the agenda for the meeting, so we have had opportunity to already digest your concerns, but this evening you will have the opportunity to further speak to your concerns. You will be given 5 minutes in which to speak. If you do take that full time, I will flag that you will need to wrap up your presentation. And then at the closure of the hearing of the representations, the applicant will have an opportunity to respond to those concerns. and then it will be put back to the panel to be able to deliberate on the application. The panel members may have questions both to you as the representor, but they may also have questions to the applicant as well. Often we do have further questions for the applicant because we're trying to understand the proposal and its full extent of details. So with that in mind, I'll now kick off the hearing of representations. So first of all, I have here Mr. Donald Sawley, if you'd like to come forward and present here at the lectern. And there is a microphone. We'll ask if you can turn that on. No, we've already got it on, thank you. So I'll hand over to you. Feel comfortable. We are really interested in what you have to say. I understand it can be a daunting process, but it need not be, and just speak and mention your key concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, my concerns. Okay. Don Sawley, 212 Ransoms Road, Penfield Gardens. We, which is my wife and I, own the property directly behind the property in concern. I wish to correct a few statements made in the proposal and or whatever. I wouldn't interfere with which Mr. Frank Tedesco does in his property. As hopefully he would respect my decisions. And conversations that come up in writing in some of this literature is offensive to me. I was going to bring up about vacant land and the thing, but that's just a play on words. That Mr. Tedesco wanted to develop vacant land. I've lived out there at 212, now it's called that, for 42 years. The chap behind me, which was a very fine elderly Italian man, he had olives, almonds, he had grapes, pigeons, everything, and he was using that land as agriculture. I bought my property knowing fully that it was agricultural. Now, to say that it's vacant land, I think that's by choice. Anyway, I've touched on that, that'll do. I was also asked, sorry Frank, to withdraw my application to the council. My answer was no, as it stands. All right? I'm not here for a fight, mate. As simple as that. My reply to council, official correspondence dated the 29th of the 7th, 2025, stands as written, with priority on devaluation of our property because of this ongoing thing. In summary, more heavy trucks in the area is not desirable as the infrastructure is inadequate. We have secondary roads there. They are narrow. I feel for the truck drivers because they have to try and get round corners and use these roads and keep their truck on the left-hand side of the road, and they cannot do it. It's impossible. They cannot take a corner without going into oncoming traffic. Okay, I'm starting to get wound up here a bit. and more heavy trucks in the area. This now I find is more or less a staging and maintenance business. Is that what you're going to do with it? It's more or less to store trucks and to work on them at this property, or what? Yeah, you can answer that, mate. Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. No, we'll get on all right, don't worry about it. I didn't know that I couldn't make suggestions or anything else, but I'll say this anyway. Suggestion. Widen and refill roads and corners to accommodate heavy-duty trucks and machinery. We have people out there that are using using very heavy machinery on secondary roads, which are narrow and is a danger to the public. If I see a truck, a semi-trailer, or how am I going for time?
You got 30 seconds before I was going to call you up. So yeah, if you'd like to start to wrap up.
I'm nearly done.
Thank you.
I'm nearly done. Where was I up to? Yeah, this is just a suggestion. As it stands, it's unsafe to the public. I'd put danger in some weird words, but unsafe. And lighting on all corners would be very helpful. So we're digging out of cars so they miss the corner, they can't see them. Now what I'm saying is, please put some infrastructure into the area. How'd I go?
Just over 5, so yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. If you just ask if you can hold, sorry, Mr. Sawley, I might just ask if you can come back just in case we have any questions for you.
Oh, yes, yes.
So I will ask if any of the members have any questions. No? Okay, thank you. You may be seated. Okay, so I also have Mr. Roger Fryer that has put in a representation and has requested to be heard. If you'd like to come forward, please. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you for the opportunity to make comment. My name's Roger Fryer. My property is adjacent to the proposed development, and I acquired this property over 25 years ago and live on the property and have developed it as an olive grove. The assessment development application is comprehensive. I've had a look through it, and it's a challenge for somebody without experience in this area. So we're dealing with this at a disadvantage. Now, I make this as a personal comment. It would have been positive if Mr. Tedesco had taken time to walk me through the proposal. I'm a neighbour, directly next to the development. Now, I don't want to duplicate what is already on record, but I wish to emphasise that in the area, the immediate area, there are 3 trucking facilities and one is placed between 2 modern residential houses. Doesn't make for good planning. Now, Tedesco Freightline is servicing primary producers not only in the immediate area, but in the extended surrounding areas, including the northern regions. And I found on Facebook a posting of a BW on a route northbound. So it leads me to believe that the size of this operation is not small scale, focusing only on local producers, and therefore, because of its operating size, I believe it should be located in the zone for such operations. And there are a number of areas in close proximity to this proposal. I'm sure Mr. Tedesco knows where these areas are, and they're all, as I said, in close proximity. Now, touching on something I think was raised, and I'm a bit hard of hearing, you were talking about a washdown area. Now, I'm not an expert in the detail of the technical application, but I want to raise the issue of water, and maybe I'm a bit off here. The surrounding area does not have access to mains water. And I, along with a lot of the other people in this area, rely on our tank water, and some rely on bore water. So my understanding that there is no mains water available on this section of Anglevale Road. So my question is, and I'll leave it to the panel, if so, what impact does it have on the functionality of such an operation, not just as a washdown ability of its trucks? So I believe this proposal is worthy. It's an industry that is required, but I just wonder if this proposal was to succeed because of its size, does this open up agricultural land for similar development and sets a precedent? And will trucking and warehouse facilities servicing more than just local producers be scattered over this whole area which is agriculture? So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So I will again ask the members if they have any questions. I do have a question from Paul there.
Question through the chair. Do you believe the operation itself will impact on your olive grove, or are you primarily concerned about the principles of land use?
No, it won't impact directly. It won't impact directly on the olive grove. There's no objection there. But I believe it's because of its size, it's a wrong fit for the area. And as Mr. Sawley just raised earlier, the trucking area has increased dramatically because of the trucking facilities that are in the area. They have to be there, I acknowledge that, but to increase them even further is really quite a problematic issue for the area. They are minor roads, and I've been in contact with the heavy vehicle regulator, the Department of Transport and the Playford Council, and I've said that and none of these organisations have issued permits to use minor roads. So in theory, they are all illegally operating on minor roads. And I've passed this on to my representative councillors about this. But nobody is doing anything. They all seem to turn a blind eye. So.
Thanks, Paul. Any other questions, members? No?
Thank you.
Thank you again. Yeah, you may be seated. So that concludes the representatives that have made submissions and requested to be heard. So I will now invite the applicant to come forward. So we do have Mr. James Hilditch and Mr. Grazio Majorano. If you'd like to come forward, thank you. Over to you. Thanks, James.
Thanks. Can I just ask about time, because we're working against a recommendation for refusal here, and I think there is some confusion about what the proposal is for, and I'd just like a bit of time, please, Aaron, to clarify that. So can we have more than 5 minutes? Sure.
Yeah, through the so I will allow some additional time if you need it. Obviously, you've got 5 minutes, but if you need a bit more, then understand that I'm happy to grant a few minutes extra.
Thanks.
To speak to that if you need it.
Thank you. So, members, I've met most of you. I've known some of you for a long time, but I haven't met all of you. I'm a planning lawyer. I've been specialising in planning law for the last 30 years. I'm not sure where that's got me, but here I am. And my client has asked me to assist him to present this application to you, mainly because there is a fundamental land use involved, and that's one of the main criticisms of the proposal. But digging a bit deeper into that and reading the recommendation and the report, there also seems to be some genuine confusion about the nature of the proposal that you're assessing. And ultimately, in the recommendation, the recommending officer has concluded that the facility will operate as a distribution hub, supplying goods to local producers and businesses. And for whatever reason, the conclusion is that that's not a supportable land use. So I'd just like to put my client's proposal in its proper context, please. Collins Transport, which is a much larger facility operating in the same zone as the crow flies, about 1.5 kilometres away from the land, was approved in recent years by the State Planning Commission. That is an end of food supply chain use. It handles and distributes finished product. My client enters all of this at the beginning of the food supply chain. Local producers require his services and rely on them to produce food, and in order to get their product off their land and out to the next stage in the food production cycle. And so if I can ask you please to turn to page 87 of the agenda report. And this is a document that was produced back in 2023, and it's been available since then, and it gives a very clear example of the services that my client provides to customers. And so if we don't have time, but I'll take a couple of examples. If we start at number 1, Gawler River Produce, in the far right column, what you'll see there is supplies and produce carted by the applicant. And so the things carted by my client to these primary producers, who are local market gardeners, are fertilisers, sprays and farming supplies. And some of that product can be stored on my client's land from the major suppliers, such as Elders. But then carted from their land are, for example, Gawler River Produce, their potatoes, their hay and their feed, and grain. And then over and above that, farming machinery needs to be moved around between farms. And so my client also provides that service. And so Vergara Wines number 3 there, you'll see there that wine grapes are collected from the vineyard and are transported to the next stage of the cycle. Costa Arm & Co is number 8. So fertilisers, spray and farming supplies are taken to that primary producer. They're carted by my client to them, and then from that primary producer he takes away the almonds and takes them away to the packing and processing facilities that they need to go to. And again, he helps them transport farm machinery to and from farms. This is a lot more than seems to be concluded in the assessment report, than simply providing some materials and supplies to primary producers. And I don't know where that's come from, because this has been abundantly clear since 2023. And so these primary producers need seed and fertiliser solutions that are delivered by my client. They need machinery transferred between farms, which my client does for them. They need their raw product collected and transported to processing facilities such as washing and packing sheds or processing plants. And that is where my client fits into the picture here. And if that is not supporting primary production in the manner intended by the zone, I really don't know what is. And yet the proposal is criticised for being in some way an inappropriate land use. So to give a bit of an example, my client will transport potatoes from surrounding potato farmers to the Mittelow facility and other packing sheds. He transfers grain from farms to Viterra or Ridley. He also transfers pallets of potatoes from the local packing sheds to the airport. And produce will sometimes be transferred into containers at my client's site, ready for export. And outer harbour can be a bit unpredictable, and he can store that in his shed. It's perishable, so that doesn't happen for long, but he can momentarily store it whilst waiting for things to free up at outer harbour. All of these are essential services required in this zone, and that's why my client has lodged this application and invested in this land. So, put bluntly, you can't grow produce if you don't have cost-effective and ready access to seed and fertiliser. And there's no point growing it if you can't get it to the processing and packaging facilities and off to market. So he's an essential part of the food production matrix and is surrounded by an important local food hub. And this is where the development fits in. The code then envisages my client's use as part of the mix of uses, and clearly transport, distribution and storage, for example, are uses specifically envisaged in the zone. There are a few different productive rural zones. There's the Rural Intensive Enterprise Zone, and that's for intensive agricultural production, and dwellings are out. And in more recent times, the Middle-O facility has been zoned in that way. Then there's the Rural Horticulture Zone for intensive horticulture and industries such as my clients, which support that industry, and dwellings are only supported where they provide a convenient base for primary producers. And then there's the Rural Zone, which supports primary production and related industries. And again, dwellings are tolerated, if I can put it that way, rather than supported. And so people choosing to live in this area cannot expect a residential area. There is going to be industry. It's a question of how it's done and where it's done. And in terms of site selection here, this is a relatively small site which will not result in the loss of any significant agricultural land, and it fronts a state-maintained road. Anglevale Road is as we've already heard, it's used by trucks. I've been out there, I've had a look at the site, and trucks are a feature of that road. And the benefit of this site is my client can drive out of it, turn left, and he's at the Port Wakefield Highway without driving through populated residential zones and areas. So in many ways, from a strategic point of view, it's an excellent site, which is why my client selected it. And yes, it's close to Collins Transport and other trucking facilities, as we've already heard. It's next to the Middle-O facility. Large industries are part of the local character, and that's to be expected. But bear in mind, all that's proposed here is a shed of 380 square metres in area, and it's only about 7 metres tall. So it's important to recognise that when we have some of the DTSs and DPFs talking and envisaging buildings up to 10 metres in height, it'll be set back 55 metres from the state-maintained road. Yes, there'll be some landscaping. I'm not sure that's particularly critical, but it is being provided, and if a lack of landscaping or more landscaping would be preferred, then the panel can make that clear and reserve that as a particular matter. But I'd suggest that when you drive down Anglevale Road, you are not confronted with views of open hills. The views are heavily punctuated by large commercial operations, greenhouses and the like. Yes, it's still a relatively pleasant area, but the code envisages that industry is going to be a part of it. So I would suggest that this should not be about whether or not this is an appropriate use in the rural horticulture zone. It clearly is. The question here is, how will it work? How will it function? What scale is it on? And I'd suggest that a 380 square metre building of around 7 metres in height, set back 55 metres from the state-maintained road, is really not something to be as concerned about as some would appear to be.
Sorry, James, I might just ask if you can start wrapping up,
sure.
please.
No worries.
Thank you.
So just to touch on the code, as we all must. What we can see in the code is PO 4.2 envisages a couple of things. It envisages the expansion of established small-scale industry, and it also envisages new large-scale industry. Large-scale industry is envisaged in this zone, and so you find Collins Transport not too far away. There's nothing wrong with that. It's needed in the zone. The question is it commensurate with the allotment? Does it realise efficiencies, and does it primarily involve primary production commodities? So you can't just go sticking an unrelated new large-scale industry in this zone. It has to relate to and support surrounding horticulture, which this proposal clearly does. And then if you look, for example, at PO 11.1, it envisages large buildings in this zone. It's just a question of how it's done and a question of design. And I would say that when you drive up and down the state maintained road, there's nothing jarring or unusual about this building that's going to stand out. Thank you. Thank you, Presiding Member, for that extra time. I think I've dealt with all that I wanted to. Can I just say I have my clients' planners here, I have their traffic engineer here, and I also have the applicant here to answer any questions. Do you want to say anything in addition at the moment?
Thank you, James, for your presentation. I will now ask members if you have any questions for Mr. Hilditch or any of the consultants. Over to you, Paul.
Through the chair, thank you, James, for that comprehensive introduction or response. Just, I've got very basic questions. Where is the business currently based?
Where's the business?
Various locations around the northern area. So I used...
Oh, sorry, I might ask Mr.
This is a consolidation of a business that operates from various places in the site and enables him to consolidate everything onto one site and one location with a shed and truck parking all in the one spot.
Thank you. And the other very simple question is, where will maintenance and wash down take place in the future if it's not going to be, if it's now been removed from this proposal?
Yeah, so now that we've removed the wash down and maintenance area, so with the removal, in the initial design that was to be part of the proposal, which has then been amended after feedback from council, and so Tedesco Freightliners will then rely on other providers of wash down services, truck maintenance that aren't on the subject site at all. So that's been completely removed from the scope, and Frank will just rely on others to do that elsewhere.
Any further questions, Paul? No. Cherie, you have any questions?
Yes,
yep.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Thank you for the presentation, James and others. I'm interested to know about why does it have to be here? I know that sounds like a simple question, but there is that question about whether or not the actual trucking storage location and the warehouse needs to be in the same exact zone as everywhere else. And I'd just like that further explained about the advantages that you see with that.
Cherie, I think the answer to that is really, it's probably best asked of those people who wrote the code, because they are clearly envisaging that this is not simply a zone in which horticulture or primary production is undertaken. It clearly envisages value-adding enterprises and activities, and one of the main desired outcomes is the establishment of appropriately scaled industries for washing, processing, bottling and packaging primary produce and servicing and supporting horticulture. And then PO1 lists transport, distribution and warehouse as appropriate uses in the zone. So it's a bit tough for a person when they're looking at where to establish these facilities. If they buy land in the zone with a view to doing that, it is difficult to understand how you could tell them it's an inappropriate land use. But what's more important than that is my client has sourced and found a bit of land that's not too big, so that it's not, you're not wasting productive horticultural land, and it's also located on this state maintained road, as I've said, not far from Port Wakefield Road, so he doesn't have to deal with going through residential areas or driving down residential streets or streets that can't readily accommodate his trucks. In many ways, it's the perfect location in this zone. And when you drive down Anglevale Road and in this area, you've got Nickel Carrots, you've got Zarella Fresh, you've got Middleow Farms, Colin Transport. So you've already got all of these large-scale industries, and he's just going to fit into them. And I would suggest he's going to blend quite well into them on a state-maintained road in a very good location. So I think really if we were dealing with a zone that only envisaged primary produce and he was trying to introduce a use that's not envisaged, I would understand that concern. But I think the authors of the code recognise that you need these supporting industries to help the local primary producers. And my client really does fill that space. It's quite a niche space, and he fills it, and he wants to do it in an efficient way on this land.
Yeah, sorry, Grazia, I might suggest if you're speaking to come forward. Sorry, Cherie, did you also have a further question? I'll let Grazia speak first and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Aaron and Cherie. I just wanted to reinforce some of the comments James made about the land use, and I appreciate this is an independent panel, but we were involved in the Collins Transport matter on I think 210 Taylors Road, corner of Roberts Road. That was assessed by SCAP. That land use, or that building, has a floor area of around 6,000 square metres. So from our perspective, SCAP has already considered the land use, a bit in a primary production zone, but very similar to the current zone, and SCAP held the view that such a land use is appropriate within these type of zones. Thank you.
Cherie, thank you.
Thank you for that answer. James mentioned that the land isn't productive. Just interested to know why that is.
No, I didn't mean to say that. It's not a productive land use, but productive land use and transport distribution facilities, I think it needs to be recognised they're mutually exclusive. I mean, they each require specialist knowledge, specialist skill, specialist infrastructure and machinery, and my client is the one that provides the supporting industry in the zone. So he can't be if there's a suggestion that there should be sort of some kind of dual use where you have horticultural production as well as transport distribution on the one site, I'm not sure how realistic that is, and I'm not sure how necessary it is on a site of this size, because it really is, as I've said, a relatively small site. It's perfectly sized to provide adequate separation distances, landscaping, and in relative terms, a smaller building than Middleow Farms or Collins or the like.
Thank you, Cherie and James. Any other questions, Cherie?
Just one that I'm interested to know a little bit more about. So how do we know that the transport use and the warehouse and the storage use for the warehouse will be used on an ongoing basis for the produce or associated goods with primary produce? So apart from the fact that I know that in the description it does say associated with, would anyone be able to tell from the outside looking in when it's operating? I'm just interested to know that. Could it be any type of storage or transport service?
Yeah, thanks, Cherie. And I think my question is also, and I'd like to pose a similar question, that I guess from a land use point of view, that that in relation to, I guess, a proposal for a transport depot or a nature of transport depot, where the planning system may have difficulty in really controlling the nature of the products that are moved or shifted, I'm interested to hear from you. How do you see that should be dealt with or can be dealt with, noting that the code clearly has an emphasis in this zone in terms of transport distribution being associated and serving private production? When we look at a strategic employment zone, for example, that very much supports or would support truck depots, transport depots, and they might be moving all manner of goods that have no relationship with private production. And I think that's Cherie's question is, well, how do we know that this proposal will ultimately do the things that you're outlining in your application? Yeah. And I guess what safeguards are there to ensure that that this site, if it were to be approved, would serve primary production essentially?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, my client primarily services the market gardeners in the surrounding food hub, and you have an extensive list of all of the people that he's provided those services to, and that's his core business. And those market gardeners require year-round support, because a lot of this stuff is grown in greenhouses, for example, so they're producing and needing seed and fertiliser and the like all year. And they're producers of potatoes, cauliflowers, cabbages, lettuce, celery, almonds, olives, grapes, grain, and hay and feed. And these producers don't have their own transport and storage facilities. And you need to judge each application on its own merits, but that's what my client wants to do. Now, he does get involved in the supply chain further afield on a seasonal basis, but that's to keep the business and the cogs moving. But his core business is all of these people in this food hub, and that's why he's bought land and wants to be in the middle of it to operate efficiently. He's applied for a use that's associated with the local horticultural and primary production uses. I'm not sure the planning system can micromanage that. I mean, some of these concerns could be raised about any number of uses. I'm not sure there's a perfect answer to it, other than you need to assess the application before you, and if it's approved, well, that's what my client is asking you to approve. So if it's suddenly used to transport as a furniture storage warehouse or for whatever other unrelated use, as unlikely as that seems to be, well, the council might be left to take enforcement action. But I think the council needs to assume that people will comply with the law and will do what they're proposing to do, and I don't think the application sounds very far-fetched. I think he's got a long experience and a long story in why he wants to be in the land. So I think all the council can probably do is approve a transport distribution facility in association with horticultural land uses.
Thank you. I think I may have a further question from Paul. If I'll hand over to you, Paul.
Again, through the presiding member, James, performance outcome 4.2, can just seek your clarification or interpretation. It refers to new large-scale industry, and then it continues on with various words. Do you believe that large-scale applies only to industry, or also to all the subsequent land uses like produce grading, packing, transport and similar activities, or is it only large-scale industry?
Oh, look, I think you need to read 4.1 and 4.2 together, and I think that sort of reveals that there's different scales are envisaged, and it sort of accommodates both. You've got the small-scale stuff where it provides opportunities for diversification and value adding, and so the DPF there talks about, for example, a small scale facility that's directly related to and ancillary to a primary production land use on the same or adjoining allotment. And I think the word adjoining allotment is there because quite often there's more than one allotment that forms a parcel of productive land, and then they've got to be located on an allotment not less than 2 hectares in area and having a certain floor area. So the small industries accommodated, but also then you get down to where expanded established small-scale uses happens or new large-scale industries happen. I don't read it as saying you can have only new large-scale industry but not storage, warehousing, produce grading, and you might also say that some of those things, the produce grading and the packing and similar activities, are industrial anyway. So I think it would be disappointing, especially in the locality with Collins and Middle Ouse and Zarella Fresh and those kind of uses, to say that this use is inappropriate because its scale is too large. I don't think that's the intent of the code at all. I think the focus more so is on, if you look at 4.3, for example, is it of a design and of a scale that maintains rural function and character in a manner that respects landscape amenity. Now, that's an appropriate consideration for you to have regard to, and that's a relevant consideration. And what I'm trying to suggest is that's really where the debate should be, not on whether or not this is an appropriate land use of an appropriate scale. And the answer to that question is, well, you've got all of these other facilities. You're on a state-maintained road, and he can get straight to that state-maintained road out to the highway in an efficient way, which does maintain rural character and amenity. And really, like all things, once it slots into the landscape, I'd suggest it will be relatively unnoticeable when you're driving down that road past Middle Ouse and with Collins trucks, etc. It's only a 380 square metre building. That 4.3 is going to come into play if someone comes in with a particularly large facility, which is conceivable. But this proposal is not that.
Thank you. Just one further question I had was regarding the extent of the hard stand. On the plans, there's quite a considerable extent of hard stand, clearly much more than is needed for manoeuvring for the heavy vehicles. Is there a particular reason why that extent of hard stand is so large?
Deal with that.
Yeah, so the plans were again amended over time. There's various transactions of the plans being amended off council's feedback where we reduced the extent of hard stand more and more. The amount that's left there that's now circling the shed is the minimum size that we could have for the unloading vehicles for intermittent storage, so a forklift could get around the warehouse proposed. Then a substantial amount of the remaining area was then converted out for compacted gravel. So I think we're now operating at the least amount of hard stand surface that we can on the site to then be able to increase the landscaping along the primary street boundary and then also make the stormwater detention basin operate. But yeah, the surrounding hard stand around the shed was just for a forklift turning circle was the intent there.
Yeah. Just from what I can see, I can clearly see on the plan that there is that area extending around the shed, which I understand is just a much larger area referring to as heavy vehicle park, essentially behind the landscaping and to the side and behind the shed. And that's the area I guess I was referring to in that it's quite a substantial area.
In between the building and the primary street boundary?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that hard stand is purely to prevent, so for the manoeuvrability of heavy vehicles and to, I suppose, reduce the amount of dust and other sort of adverse impacts from turning on unsealed areas. That's the intent behind that hard stand. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, I believe that concludes the hearing representations and the applicant's response. So thank you for your response to the representations. And I will ask, if you'd like to be seated, and we will now move into the deliberation stage for the application. I may just provide opportunity for staff to, I guess, provide a response if there's anything further you wanted to add in light of that discussion, in particular around if there's anything in particular that has raised further questions or considerations. And I may then also go to the panel members to see if they have any further questions.
The Chair, in terms of the land use and the scale of the use, not so much as the building, which is articulated in the report, we don't have any change to, I guess, our interpretation of the application and our recommendation.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff from the panel members? No further questions? I'll just pose I mentioned before and queried the applicant regarding the extent of the hard stand, and if you have any further views on that in terms of why it is needed to be so substantial around the, I guess, that front part of the site. Obviously there's an extent of area needed for manoeuvring, but it clearly seems to go beyond that, whether you had any further comments on that.
Through the Chair, this would be, I would regard it as a normal activity in relation to a distribution centre where you'd be having loading and offloading. There would be goods, I guess, stored, whether temporarily for the to change vehicles and wait for their routes. In terms of the length of it, it's probably a type of activity that would have warranted maybe in an employment zone for further sealing for the land, but in terms of, I guess, the size of the scale of the operation, that's not practical. So in terms of, I guess, whether or not that loading area is offensive in terms of the zone, I don't think so, other than what the use sort of extends in terms of, I guess, views of the property as you're approaching along Anglevale Road, in terms of whether or not the area basically looks like an industrial operation. Having said that, in the context of, I guess, is it required for the agriculture, for the primary production industry, or is it something that's aside from that? So, yep.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll now move into the deliberation. So I will open it up to the panel members for your views in relation to the proposal. So if either Paul or Cherie would like to kick off, I would welcome your thoughts. Paul.
It's clear that the code anticipates a range of support activities in addition to simply growing food or fodder. That it anticipates value adding, distribution, packing, and the like. But I'm really torn as to what scale it anticipates. And I have no issue with the concept of the applicant's business providing transport and distribution services to local and regional primary producers. But I am torn on whether the code anticipates an entire allotment dedicated to that purpose or those functions, or whether it's a portion. And unfortunately, neither, or certainly 4.1 makes it quite clear that small-scale operations have to be ancillary to and associated with primary production on that allotment or adjoining allotment. And you could argue that that doesn't anticipate those services serving producers beyond the current allotment or adjoining. However, 4.2 then talks about transport distribution serving the serving either sourced or serving primarily involving primary production commodities sourced from the same allotment and or surrounding rural areas. So it anticipates there that it doesn't necessarily have to relate to the primary production on the land. And so in that sense, I guess the land use arguably is supportable. Then, as James Hilditch has pointed out, that probably the main concern then is the character and amenity. And I note that the building is not too far beyond the floor limit placed in PO 4.2, around 350 square metres. And in that context, not dissimilar to what a primary producer may put on their land for the purpose of storing agricultural machinery, for example. So I don't think the building scale itself is envisaged within the zone. And then I guess the only other character aspects then come from the, as has been pointed out through the questions, is the extent of paving, but also I think the style and type of fencing that is proposed here. It'll stand out quite uniquely as a non-primary production activity, given the paving around the building, and the fencing itself. But I'll wait to hear from the views of others. I'm quite torn as to whether that's whether there's sufficient reasons to not support the proposal, given that I think, certainly having heard the arguments presented to us tonight, that the code does anticipate this type of land use been provided in the zone. One further point, I am also cognizant of the Geber case where the concept of an entire allotment being used for a non-primary production activity is certainly something that needs to be considered. So I'll wait to hear from the views of other members.
Thank you, Paul. Sheree.
Thank you, through the chair. I think it is one that requires careful consideration and looking at it from all angles. And most of the conversation tonight has obviously pinned on the land use. I think the land use itself, it is anticipated, but again, as Paul said, it's whether or not it is. The zone anticipates whether it should be associated or ancillary to that primary production or horticultural land uses, and then what that means. So taking that into consideration, and also the fact that the use itself is it's ultimately standalone on the whole allotment, so commensurate to the allotment, it's quite large, I believe. And how I think this zone really anticipated, and this will be an interesting conversation moving forward, but anticipated that there would be some value add or associated ancillary to or adjacent to the horticultural primary production activities in the zone itself. And I don't know how a standalone facility like this can actually on an ongoing basis say, oh, we actually only serve this local area. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's something that can be or should be controlled by the planning system. In any case, I believe the code, this zone, actually anticipates that stronger link to the surrounding primary production land uses. And the reason that I say that comes back to 4.1, which does say the opportunities for diversification and value adding to locally sourced primary production activities. Yes, that's one aspect of the performance outcome. But then looking at the DPF, the associated DPF, it talks about, I mean, you don't have to meet all of that, I know that, but it does give a guide as to how to interpret the performance outcome and what is intended as part of the performance outcome. And that talks about the directly related or the ancillary type of language, and which really gives that impression that the zone is looking to really have that small scale or locally sourced opportunities available to it. I'm finding two things that are probably sticking to where I'm going to fall on this is, again, what it seems to be the intensity or the scale on the actual allotment itself, and that does come down to how it looks in the character of the area. The hard stand is a good point that was raised, and I'd agree with that. I'd be interested also to know about the size of the warehouse, although in and on itself it's you'd argue that it's not too big in the locality. However, I'm interested to know whether or not there's opportunity to reduce it if you no longer need some of it as part of the truck maintenance activity that was previously proposed inside the warehouse. But now, I mean, it might not make a difference, but I didn't get a chance to ask that before. And the other aspect was how it looks and functions will probably be no different to how it would probably look and function on an ordinarily basis, not connected to primary production whatsoever, any sort of goods transferred in an employment zone. So at this point in time, I'm probably leaning towards supporting the proposal, supporting the recommendation, I should say, in the staff report. But yeah, open to further discussion as well.
Thank you, Cherie. So there is some mixed feedback in relation to the application. Yeah, I'm finding it particularly challenging application as well. Some of the provisions in the code are, I think, are somewhat unclear, and it is to an extent a level of interpretation that we have to make about them. I think one of the observations I do make in relation to the, as was mentioned by Paul, the GEBA matter, and James Hilditch did touch on this, is yes, we do have transport distribution is listed in the DPF as a land use, but clearly with the GEBA judgment, the whole fundamental nature of the application has to tie back to the performance outcome. And the applicant has provided a fair amount of information as to the linkages with this proposal, but albeit that this is serving more broadly uses in the region, so to speak, rather than necessarily on the allotment or on the adjacent allotment. At this stage, we don't have someone that's prepared to move the recommendation. Paul, can I come back to you to see if you have anything further you'd like to add now that you've heard Cherie speak?
I'll focus on the, I guess, the character and amenity aspects that, with all due respect to the applicant's arguments about this being on a state-maintained road, and maybe the, I guess, suggestion that maybe that has a lower amenity than other roads. I think that's not, in my view, that's not a primary aspect or concern. That I think the landscape clearly is devoid of any large structures along there. There's not many. There's no fences separating different properties, or they're very, very low visual, low impact. And so I think the introduction of a fairly large paved area with security fencing and a building placed, albeit 70 metres from the road, or at least, will still have a visual impact. So they were the only other things I wanted to add.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And I think that's the one of the areas that I have some reservations about the proposal is the, as was talked about, with the extent of the change in the appearance of the site, and where, in particular, that performance outcome 4.3, which does talk about uses being of a scale that maintains rural function and character. So character is part of that consideration, and that respects landscape amenity. So the proposal does clearly include landscaping to the front, but with the inclusion of the fencing and quite substantial hard stand has potential to result in a fairly substantial change to the character, aside from the issue of the land use. So in that respect, I think there are some shortcomings with the proposal as it's presented. So I will just ask again if one of the members wants to further consider whether they wish to move the motion as recommended, or whether they wish to propose an alternative motion.
I'll just clarify with staff, the applicant has amended the description to remove the truck maintenance and washdown area. I take it that would also be removed from the recommendation 2.
Yes, Paul can confirm as part of the documentation that was provided in terms of that being removed, and then the recommendation subsequently to then remove those 2 reasons for refusals as well.
Presiding member, the applicant, the recommendation as amended.
Thank you, Paul. Do I have a seconder? I think I can see Cherie's, that's a seconder there, Cherie, or have you got a question?
I was going to move it, but I can second it.
So Cherie has seconded it. So I will now put that to a vote. So all those in favour? So that is carried. So the application as recommended has been refused. Thank you for those in the gallery that have attended this evening. If you do have any further questions in relation to that item, you can contact staff the following day, and you can speak further in relation to the outcome of the decision. Thank you. So moving on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, so, sorry, just bear with me a sec. So we are now moving to item 10.1, and so this relates to an outstanding matter of appealed and deferred items. So the application is for a warehouse and light industry development with advertisement and associated detention basin, car parking, landscaping regulated and significant tree removals. So we will need to move into confidence in relation to that matter. So I will need to ask that that be moved. Paul, and then can I have a seconder, Cherie? All those in favour? That's carried.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au/fightfoodwaste.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au, and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Want to get involved in your community? There are so many benefits in becoming a volunteer at City of Playford, including meeting new people, developing new skills, sharing your talents, improving your employability, as well as enhancing your own mental health and well-being.
If you want to learn more about how to volunteer with us, visit playford.sa.gov.au/volunteers. Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stratton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults. Plus, the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stratton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manapara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and enjoy a show at the Shedley. Playford's iconic Shedley Theatre is bringing a great selection of local and national performances to Elizabeth.
For more information on their upcoming shows, visit theshedley.com.au or call 8256 0500.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Want to get involved in your community? There are so many benefits in becoming a volunteer at City of Playford, including meeting new people, developing new skills, sharing your talents, improving your employability, as well as enhancing your own mental health and well-being.
If you want to learn more about how to volunteer with us, visit playford.sa.gov.au/volunteers. Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stratton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults. Plus, the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stratton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manapara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and enjoy a show at the Shedley. Playford's iconic Shedley Theatre is bringing a great selection of local and national performances to Elizabeth.
For more information on their upcoming shows, visit theshedley.com.au or call 8256 0500.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au/fightfoodwaste.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au, and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Want to get involved in your community? There are so many benefits in becoming a volunteer at City of Playford, including meeting new people, developing new skills, sharing your talents, improving your employability, as well as enhancing your own mental health and well-being.
If you want to learn more about how to volunteer with us, visit playford.sa.gov.au/volunteers. Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stratton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults. Plus, the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stratton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manapara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and enjoy a show at the Shedley. Playford's iconic Shedley Theatre is bringing a great selection of local and national performances to Elizabeth.
For more information on their upcoming shows, visit theshedley.com.au or call 8256 0500.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au/fightfoodwaste.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au, and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Want to get involved in your community? There are so many benefits in becoming a volunteer at City of Playford, including meeting new people, developing new skills, sharing your talents, improving your employability, as well as enhancing your own mental health and well-being.
If you want to learn more about how to volunteer with us, visit playford.sa.gov.au/volunteers. Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stratton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults, plus the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stratton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manapara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and enjoy a show at the Shedley. Playford's iconic Shedley Theatre is bringing a great selection of local and national performances to Elizabeth.
For more information on their upcoming shows, visit theshedley.com.au or call 8256 0500.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au/fightfoodwaste.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Want to get involved in your community? There are so many benefits in becoming a volunteer at City of Playford, including meeting new people, developing new skills, sharing your talents, improving your employability, as well as enhancing your own mental health and well-being.
If you want to learn more about how to volunteer with us, visit playford.sa.gov.au/volunteers. Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Have you visited the Stretton Centre on Peachy Road, Manapara? Designed to support growth in the city of Playford, the centre offers dedicated workspaces from less than $10 per day. There's also state-of-the-art event and meeting spaces for hire, a complimentary business support service to help you upskill, apply for grants and grow, workshops and networking, as well as training for young kids right through to adults. Plus, the City of Playford Library.
Contact our team for a tour on 8254 4666 or visit the Stretton Centre at 307 Peachy Road, Manapara.
Support your local theatre and arts industry and
Thank you, and press the button. And item 11, policy discussion. Is there further matters that staff want to mention in relation to that matter?
Thank you. Not necessarily related to that matter. Just thought I'd just put out and just advise of the Code of Conduct for Council Assessment Panel members that was distributed to all panel members along with the guidance material. So that's effective as of the 10th of November, so obviously being part of this meeting, so I just thought I'd bring it to the attention and into the minutes, and also if there was any discussion or queries any panel members had for staff relating to that we can either take on notice or answer today as well.
Thanks, Leif. Paul?
Just going back to the previous item, page 131, did we have another motion to move there about the length of time to keep it in confidence, or have we done that?
Sorry, Paul, the motion was to retain the item in confidence as opposed to move out of confidence. So you have resolved to retain the item in confidence.
Any other questions regarding policy matters? No, I think just make note of those policy challenges in relation to the rural horticulture zone. And whether it's something that staff want to further discuss with Plus, and I believe this also comes up in similar zoning, rural zone, for example, where there's similar policies that refer to small scale, large scale, and this consideration between basically a standalone is what Sharif referred to earlier, standalone versus a use that is integrated with or in association with another use either on the site or adjacent. And whether there needs to be more clarity around what some of those terms in those policies actually mean. Something for further consideration anyway. Okay, so that was the last matter in relation to the agenda, so I believe we're now at the closure of the meeting. So unless there was anything further to mention or discuss, we're now at the point of being able to close the meeting. So I'd like to thank everyone for this evening, staff and those that were in attendance, and I will declare the meeting closed at 7:33. Thank you.
Did you know your food scraps should go in the green bin or a home compost system? It's better for the environment. It's the right thing to do. And it's easy. Fight food waste by putting all your food scraps, peels and leftovers in the green bin. To find out more, visit playford.sa.gov.au/fightfoodwaste.
Want to know what's happening in the community? Subscribe to our e-newsletter, Playford News, at playford.sa.gov.au, and you'll be on top of stories, news and what's happening in Playford. It's local news for local people.
Want to get involved in your community? There are so many benefits in becoming a volunteer at City of Playford, including meeting new people, developing new skills, sharing your talents, improving your employability, as well as enhancing your own mental health and well-being.
If you want to learn more about how to volunteer with us, visit playford.sa.gov.au/volunteers. Feedback about our city's future from our community is really important. It helps us prioritise your needs when planning services, projects and other initiatives.
A convenient way to have your say and stay in the loop on any upcoming consultations is by registering your details on our Engagement Hub website at playford.engagementhub.com.au.
We look forward to hearing from you.